So with Enlisted giving us the ability to select maps that we love and hate, especially with the latest update, in today's video I'm going to be talking about the top 5 worst maps in the game. And these are some of the incredibly worst maps of the game that I can speak of. So without further ado, without wasting everyone's time, let's just get started. And the first one we have to talk about is Swamps. Swamps is a very bad map. For example, Swamps Conquest is pretty dang bad, mainly because of the fact that Swamps Conquest is completely open top. Any plane that you have can do damage, and usually when you're at this tier, it's usually tier 4 or 5 planes, and usually tier 4 or 5 planes are really some of the best planes in the game, and especially if you're playing as the Americans or the Germans. Both of them are going to be having very good planes. So Swamps is essentially an air frenzy, and usually if you know how to use a plane, you tend to get a lot of kills using the plane. So that's great for players that use planes. And as you could see in this trend, most of the maps are going to be from Normandy. Next up, we have Versmer, mostly the Assault Versmer, mainly because that thing is horrific. For one, there is an open map that is pretty dang hard to take. The defenders are actually pretty dang solid, and that means the attackers are very, very hard. As a matter of fact, this is pretty much the case for almost every assault situation, so that's pretty dang interesting. The only issue is that Versmer is probably the worst out of all of them. Almost 90% when I play this map, I lose. Either it's because of a team, or it's because of the map itself, of which the map itself is pretty dang hard. For example, the starting one, you essentially have to take out 2 places that are pretty hard to defend. Yeah, you can take them sometimes, but if you have a bad team, you tend to lose them very quickly, and if you have a good team, you still have a hard time taking them. So, Versmer Assault, mainly Assault, other stuff like Versmer Invasion, Confrontation, etc. is also pretty dang bad, but Versmer Assault is very, very dang bad. And the next one we have up is Mountain Pass. Same thing with Swamps, except for Mountain Pass is akin to everything is pretty dang bad. For starters, the air situation is more akin to anyone who has a plane, and at this point everyone should have a plane, is hard to take out. And the mention regarding infantry is that as of right now, infantry tends to be shot right away, especially with the AI behaving like the way they are, meaning that Mountain Pass is very difficult for both infantry and planes. Of course, all of this in this video is my opinion. You guys can completely disagree, and I'm fine with it. As a matter of fact, I suggest that you comment in the comment section down below of what do you think are the worst maps. But in my personal opinion, Mountain Pass is pretty bad because not only is it bad for infantry, extremely bad for infantry, it's also extremely bad for other things such as tanks, in the sense that tanks really can't operate, and when they do operate, they tend to operate on the roads that you know they're gonna come. Essentially, if you put an anti-tank mine, every tank is gonna get killed. So that's that. And let's move on to the next one, which is the Teneroo. For some reason, the Teneroo is pretty dang hard, mainly because of the fact that it can actually fight against tier 4 and 5, especially if you're attacking the first few seconds of Teneroo. If you have a tank, then you're down to get a few 20 or 40 kills. Just go on top of the mountain and then just shoot down on the trenches at Teneroo. So that's pretty dang hard for infantry. This is not to mention the fact that the defenders can't even reach the mountain and only can get up to half of the mountain, whereas the attackers can go all the way up the mountain. So that means snipers have a heyday if they use the mountain. And then regarding the other stuff, the other sections of the map, your tanks can literally do a lot of damage. So that's great. At least the first 3 points of Teneroo are essentially you bringing out a tank, and you can get at least 100 kills if you're lucky, and 50 kills if you're unlucky. Now, moving on to the other parts, the other 2 parts of Teneroo, the remaining parts of Teneroo, are pretty decent, but still, the first few defensive position of the Teneroo is pretty dang bad. So that is the only Pacific map I'm gonna put on here that I do not like. And let's move on to the 5th one, which is Airfield. Doesn't matter what Airfield it is, whether it's Confrontation, Invasion, or whatnot, Airfield is one of the worst maps in the game, mainly because, for starters, if you're on the defending side, you are essentially boxed in from the start, and if you're on the attacking side, just bring out a tank and kill everyone in the defensive pots, and there's not a lot of things anti-tank members can do. If you want to deploy a tank, you essentially are gonna do pretty well. If you are gonna deploy a plane, you're essentially gonna be slightly limited, but you're still gonna do pretty well. The real sufferers of this entire situation is infantry. If you have a radio operator, then you also tend to do really well, because if you want to call in radio strikes, then what ends up happening is that these airfields, the hangars, they tend to have no upward protection. Now, Enlisted has changed some things here and there, but still, the situation is pretty much the same. Airfield is one of those places in which it's both hard to defend and hard to attack. To defend, it's pretty dang costly to defend, but to attack, it's also extremely hideous to attack because you can be instantly thrown out. if you do not know what you're doing. So that's that. In my personal opinion, Airfield has been one of the worst maps in the game for a long time, and as of right now, it's still one of the worst maps in game. So without further ado, this is all it for this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the Discord, and I'll see you in the next one.